Hey everyone, and welcome to another one of our videos. Today I'm going to be going through a little bit of the process of me rebuilding, or rather resealing, my BAKFlip bed cover on my 2011 Ford F-150 Raptor. From what I understand, most of these BAKFlip covers are based basically on the same type of platform, more or less. They all use very similar, the same seals when we're talking about the tri-fold ones or the quad-fold ones. Same types of seals, same types of weather stripping, drain kits, the little prop rods, holders, all of that. They all really use the same stuff, and it's just the format has changed and shimmed and such to fit different truck bed sizes and different body styles and everything. So my cover is at this point over 10 years old, and some of the seals and everything are degraded to the point where either they're looking bad or they're split and they're starting to leak into the bed, which is no good either way. So what I'm going to do is pull mine apart and basically reseal it, update it, so on and so forth, to give it hopefully another 10 years or more of life. So what I bought to do this is probably more than what I'll need, and I'll go over to the truck in a minute here and show you kind of what's going on with the existing bed cover, but probably more than what I need. I'm probably not going to use every single thing that you see here, but this is more or less everything that you'll need to do what I think would be a general refresh of one of these, and it's about $100 worth of stuff, so it's not too crazy in terms of cost compared to over $1,000 for one of these bed covers new. So what I have is the universal flap seal for the front and back of the cover. Mine's not in horrible shape, may or may not replace it, but I've got this in case I need it, and I think it bonds to the side seals, which are in bad shape, so I may end up having to replace that. Speaking of the side seals, I have a big old roll of side seal here. Mine is all split, I'll show you that in a little bit. This is kind of a universal extruded rubber product for, I believe, all of the tri-fold and quad-fold covers. So the F1 series and all the different, MX4 I think is one of them, all the different folding bed covers. I have some of the, what they call universal thin-ribbed bulkhead seal. I believe this is the seal along the sides, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. Honestly, at this point, I haven't gone through everything and don't 100% know. This could also be the stuff that's up at the front for some varieties of these. So, because mine is leaking, and because mine is leaking towards the front, I know for sure, and I think in some other areas too. I got this, and then I think this is another bulkhead seal. Yeah, so this is a thicker bulkhead seal right here. It's more of a foam tape as opposed to a rubber type of tape. So I got a couple of those. I have rail seal. So this one right here, mine started to basically disintegrate and push out from underneath the extruded aluminum rails. Definitely need to replace that. That's that one. I have prop rod clips. These, from what I understand, break all the time. Mine are broken, so my prop rods kind of just flop around in the bed. And they unscrew from the pivot points and everything. So I've actually had one of mine come loose and fly around in my bed and everything, and almost lost it. So definitely want to replace these. I don't think I'll need these, but I bought a universal shim spacer kit. These are used to shim the aluminum rails in and out, depending on the type of truck bed that you have, basically. So with certain trucks and certain covers, you're going to want to move that out, in and out, to accommodate for the natural angle or curvature of the truck bed itself. So I may or may not need these, like I said, but I've got them. And then I don't believe my truck has these at all, but these are the drain caps that go on the rails. So basically any water that gets those extruded aluminum rails, it'll go down in there and drip down the rail one way or the other towards the front of the back. I could be wrong, but I don't think I have these, and I think that might be part of the reason why water dumps into my bed. So I got these, they come in a pair, and then the drain tubes as well that clip onto those, I guess, and go with those. So that's what I've got, and I'm not necessarily going to give you a full tutorial of how to install all of this, but I'm just going to kind of go through the process as best I can for you, and hopefully if you have one of these, this helps you refresh it and not throw it in the trash, because I've been on the fence about whether or not I want to sort through all the different parts that are available for these and rebuild it, or just buy a new one. And with how available these parts were and everything, I think, at least at the moment, I'm glad that I did buy these. We'll see how much of a pain it is to install it all. But let's go ahead and head over to the truck and see what's going on, so I can show you kind of why I'm doing all of this, and we'll go from there with some of the refresh and everything, see how far we need to pull it apart and what we need to do. All right, so here is my existing BAKFlip bed cover, and you can see the fiberglass surface of this guy is a little worse for wear. I think I can darken that up and make that look pretty darn good again pretty easily. But to just kind of go through some of what we're replacing and why. You can't see it super well on this side, and actually this side's side seal is in pretty good condition all along the side. But you can see on the other side, especially right there, and in really all three spots on the other side, that side seal is torn. That's letting water at least into the rails, if not just straight down into the bed. So that's why I'm replacing those. Flip this open. One issue that I have with my cover right now is the fact that it slides around up towards the front of the bed, the cab. I didn't install this cover, so I don't know how it's secured there, and I haven't looked into it yet. I've been planning this project for a while, so that's part of the plan this time, to figure out how to do that and adjust that so it doesn't move around. But that's been moving around, so that's an issue that I'm going to correct. You can see the front flap seal in there, so we'll see what we're able to do with that. One of the big ones, like I said, this is the side rail seal that goes under here. This is just totally degraded, falling apart, turning into either crust or goop, one of the two, sometimes both, depending on the area and everything. But it's squishing out from underneath the rails and everything, so definitely want to get that taken care of. One thing I wasn't able to find is this seal right here with like the plastic embedded in it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find that, so I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with that. If it's going to be a trim it off situation, which may work out well if I'm installing like drain tubes in the back here or something like that. But we'll see how that goes. You can see right now, at least in the back, there's no drain tubes. I don't know if there's any on the front side. But that's just a little bit of what's going on. I've also got other maintenance things that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to lubricate the cables and everything, or figure out how to lubricate those best, because they're getting a little stiff and a little bit of a pain to pull both sides from one handle without really yanking on it. So definitely want to get that taken care of. So there's definitely some work that we got ahead of us. And other than just starting to pull things apart and everything, I don't really have a solid plan of attack. I think I'm going to end up having to take, however that happens, the entire flat part of the bed cover off. And then where I'm going to go from there is, if I had to guess, pulling these rails off to get all of this apart and to figure all that out. But I didn't install this cover, so I don't know how it went on, so I don't necessarily know off the top of my head how I'm going to take it off. So I'll go through that process, talk about it, film what I can, and we'll see how this kind of restoration of this cover goes. All right, so as you can see, I have the bed cover fully off now. It was actually pretty easy to take off. It's a little weighty, but not too bad. I mean, it's probably less than 50 pounds. And basically the way it secures is just with the latches, with each panel that just latch in, boom, 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 along the sides. And then it has, right here through these tabs, these metal hand-turned, they're not really a wing nut, they're like a 5-pointed nut, the metal kind of nuts, and then a big washer and a lock washer. So all that does is come from underneath, and there's studs in the cover itself that secure it into place. So it's off now. I'm definitely going to clean a lot of things up. I wish that I was able to get new seals for this. Again, it looks like it's actually riveted in, so I can see maybe why that's not available. But I really wish I could, because it doesn't look the greatest. But I found some interesting things. Number one, it's going to be pretty easy to take this apart overall. Number two is for the prop rods. I was just playing with the clips before I took everything apart. Those just clip on really easily, so that's a nice, easy to replace item. Even if you're not taking this whole thing apart, super easy to replace. And number three is the fact that I have the drain nipples up under here, but no tubes. So this kind of makes sense as to why my bed gets really wet whenever it rains on the cover. All the water is probably just dumping out of these drain nipples here into my bed and basically flowing, because the truck is a little reverse raked, downhill towards the back. So that kind of makes a lot of sense that would get wet in here. What I'm planning on doing with the drain tubes, whether it'll work with the ones that I bought or not, I don't know, but is to just connect there and then have them dump down here. We'll see how that works out. I'm also going to take advantage of having everything apart now to clean all the way up here and down the bed and everything along those lines as well, since it's really easy to access at this point. So next step, I think, is going to just be taking the bed rails off to replace those seals. I think that's really the next step and the first step in actually replacing stuff. So I'm going to, I believe, just either loosen or remove these three little clamp guys, and feels like those just clamp to the factory, inside of the factory bed rail. And I think that that's gonna remove the BAKFlip rails at that point. Just points of reference, they're just flushed up against the front side of the bed. So that's gonna be my plan for reinstalling, just flushing them up against there. And then I know that mine are shimmed, I believe with some of the 1/8 inch shims. I think that they come in multiple sizes, I can't remember for sure. But I think those are adhesive, so I don't think those are gonna come off whenever I do any of this. So that should be really easy to put back into place. So I'm gonna go ahead and proceed with pulling these guys off, and we'll see what happens. All right, so I got the bed cover unclamped. You can see the rails are off now. I should say the bed cover rails I got unclamped and they're off now. Real simple. I used a 5/8 inch wrench. I assume this is American sized hardware, not metric. So 5/8 worked for me. These clamps, this bolt is what faces inwards towards the bed. And basically this just clamps, one side locks into notches on the bed cover rails. The other side kind of latches into and digs into the bed rail itself, the metal steel bed rail underneath the caps here. So you loosen those up, they drop off, and then the aluminum bed rail, the extruded one, just comes right off, no problem. What I did once I got those off, there was a ton of dirt just caked in here, and totally would expect that after years and years of use. I went ahead and took some 303 aerospace protectant and got that all cleaned up. So that's all nice and clean and conditioned. I may end up doing a few treatments of that before I put everything back together, but I have the rails off the truck now. I'm gonna go ahead and head on over to those and show you what we're working with. So I got one of these rails all cleaned up and ready to go, and I'm about to do the other one, but I wanted to kind of walk you through what these look like on my truck, and also what I'm doing to get these cleaned up and prepped and ready for new seals and everything. So these rails have one big long shim strip going along the entire length of the rail. I may or may not reuse this. If I have all the right shims of the new ones to use, I may use those instead. If I do reuse these, I am going to need to put new adhesive on the back side of them. So I will clean these up at that point if I get to that point. But what I'm doing is pulling these off completely, and I'm also pulling off the rubber seals, which you can see very degraded here, pulling those off completely. And what I'm doing to clean up all the adhesive is I'm using some rapid remover, which is kind of caustic, but very, very effective chemical for this. And I'm spraying it on, letting it sit for a few minutes, and then I'm using a plastic razor blade to scrape off all the excess adhesive, and then I'm just getting all the remaining adhesive off with paper towels from there. Doing that on a nice surface in a well-ventilated area. I'm wearing PPE, goggles, respirator, all that stuff, to make sure that I inhale as little of this as possible, because it's, again, not very good for you, but again, very effective. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy prepped and everything, and cleaned off otherwise, and then we'll come back once these two pieces, this and the other side, are completely done, dried off, and ready to rock and roll for new adhesive installation and everything. So we'll be back when we get to that point. All right, so now we've moved on to the bed cover, and you can see probably from what's going on here, I've done a little bit of experimentation. So what I started with was pulling off one of the side seals. This one was the one that was super ripped up. And what I did to do that was just basically started at the end here and peeled and pulled. There's this slot that the seals slide into, but I basically tore the seal in half at that line right there, tore the top flat part off first, and then just pulled the parts that slide into the T-slot out from there. You can kind of see what that looks like here, still adhered into place. I basically just tore it at this seam right up in here. So that is off of this side, and then what I've done is taken an eraser wheel on my drill right here, and just eraser wheeled most of the adhesive off. I'll use some solvent on the last little bits here, but to clean off the bulk, I use that. The reason I didn't just go straight for solvent is because I don't know what it'll do to, I know what it'll do to the anodized pieces. I don't know what it'll do to the rubber seals here that I'm not replacing, because these are still in good shape. And I don't know what it'll do to the fiberglass top at all, as far as the gel coat and stuff goes. And with how long I left it on the anodized pieces on the rails, I don't want to kind of risk that and find out, because it took quite a while to remove this 3M adhesive, being as old and everything as it is. So the plan of attack is that I'm going to go ahead and eraser wheel all the rest of this off here. I'm going to basically repeat the process on the other side right here, and pull this off the same way and eraser wheel all the adhesive off. And then the front and back seals I'm replacing as well. And my plan for these is just to peel them off same way as these. I'm guessing we'll be able to eraser wheel the material off on the underside of the adhesive. So that's my plan there. And then at that point, do the final cleanup with solvent and everything, and with IPA. And my adhesive process to adhere new seals on should be relatively similar to how they were on the rails. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy stripped down and move forward with that. And then we'll touch on some more of the restoration, which you can kind of see some splotches of that starting and stuff after we move past the resealing part. We're back after some time. I've got all the adhesive removed from the cover, and I'll show you that in a minute. But we're gonna start working on getting everything adhered, all the new materials adhered and everything onto the cover as well now. So I wanted to show you kind of what I've gotten. I believe I have all the materials now that I need for the shims and everything else. So I got some 1/2 inch wide by 1/8 inch thick by, I believe, 5 foot long strips of UHMW polyethylene. This I was able to get from McMaster Car. I will put a link in the description for this as well, just in case you need a reference for to get this. It's not quite long enough to match the original material that I had on the truck and on the bed cover. What I'm going to do is utilize the shims that I had bought as well, the rubber ones that I didn't want to kind of lay out across the entire cover. Utilize those to take up the excess, probably towards the front of the bed. So that's what I got to replace the strips. I have some 1/2 inch wide 3M VHB tape here, so that I'm just going to run along each one of these strips, each one of the two, and that'll adhere everything fine. This material, polyethylene, has a pretty low surface energy, so tapes and adhesives don't want to stick very well. I am going to use some of the Primer 94 that came with a lot of the other stick-on items and use that on these just to make sure that everything does stick the way it should. And then, of course, I'm going to clean them with alcohol and everything before I put tape on. So that's all going to get Primer 94 on it and get everything adhered onto it. And then I'm going to take you over to the bed cover to show you what it looks like and what we're going to do as far as sticking new materials onto that goes. All right, so we have the bed cover now, and it doesn't look a whole lot different other than the fact that it has all of the seals taken off of it now, and all the adhesives as well. So you can see I've gotten all the seal and seal adhesive taken off on this side, as well as on this side. You can still see some of the 303 splotches that I put on there. I didn't go ahead and do any more 303 restoration, which I will go through for you guys on this yet. I don't want to get something that may affect the adhesion of the new seals all over the place, only to have it affect the adhesion of the new seals. I obviously want those to adhere as best they can, so we'll follow up on that a little bit later. You can also see that the flap seal at the front was taken off. That actually adheres to the underside here, and then same on the other side, on the back side as well. So you can see I've got that taken off, if we look all along there. So we're good to go with that. So I believe where I'm going to start is on the flap seal on the front and the back. Now I'm gonna hold it up and take a look and see if the new flap seal is pliable enough to adhere onto there, but for me to still be able to slide in the side seals. The reason I want to do these guys is because I want to use the primer from these, prime those areas, and use it on the UHMW strips as well to get those guys done. If that doesn't work, then obviously I'll just start with the sides and then do the front and back and the UHMW strips after that. So one or the other will work out. I'm just thinking I'm going to start with the ends first. So we'll go ahead and lay out all of the materials. I'm going to start test fitting some stuff, and then I'll come back once we have an actual game plan in place of how we're going to do this. All right, so I've been playing around with the flap seal a little bit, and a couple things. Number one, this half and that half actually come as one big long spool, and what you do is just tear them apart. They're connected here in the middle, right here, and you just need to tear them apart. It's not super difficult or anything. And then, at least for this truck, and I'm guessing probably for most trucks, because the width of most trucks' beds are about the same, you can see I've got a little bit overhanging over here, a little bit overhanging over here. Those I'm just going to trim to fit once I have that adhered in place, but basically I'm going to stick this entire piece on. That's how it's going to be going on. That said, if we take a look under here, and I'm just gonna hold this kind of in place here to show you, this seal blocks the channel through which the side seals go. So what I'm gonna end up having to do is, I think, put the side seals in first and then deal with the end seals from there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the side seal out now. I think that's all one big spool. Gonna obviously have to cut it to fit, but I'm gonna go ahead and get a couple strips of that cut and ready to go, and then start looking at test fitting and things like that, and start going through that process before we start dealing with the front and back seals and then the strips as well. So let's move on to that. All right, so I've got these guys trimmed to length now. I've cut them with quite a bit of overhang for two reasons. Number one, I just want to have that to be able to trim it up once I get these in place. But number two, if you remember, this flap seal is going to extend out from here, and then these side seals actually adhere to the flap seal right here. So I just want to make sure that I have enough and plenty of seal to be able to do that overlap. It's going to overlap and adhere to the end seals, and then I can trim off from there whenever I'm good and ready. So at this point, what I've done is wipe down each side rail, kind of line up with isopropyl alcohol, and I'm going to go ahead and use the IPA prep wipe that comes with this little seal roll that I got, and use some 3M Primer 94 along these ends on the sides. I'm also going to hopefully use that same tube of 3M Primer 94 to go ahead and primer the strips that are going to go on the side rails for the shims, but we're going to see if we have enough in there to do that. So primary objective is to get this all primered before we slide these in, and to let the primer cure before we slide these in per the instructions, because it's going to be really tough to peel these back and do the primer if I slide them into the grooves on the sides beforehand. And then once that cures or is ready, we can go ahead and slide these guys in and then stick this all in place. So we're going to proceed with that. You can see with the seals hanging off, I've got those guys not only in place, but they are adhered down. You can see the transfer tape that I left on there, because I'm going to place the end seals on next, starting with what is the back end seal right here, right now actually. So I'm going to flip this up for you just very quickly and temporarily. Maybe I will, maybe I won't on camera. There we go. You can see the new seals on there. One thing I want to note, I'm not sure about yet, I did not slit the seals here in the little T-groove area. My old ones were either slit there from the factory or they were cracked there, and I don't know which. This seems to stretch no problem and have really no issue folding, and considering that most of the time this tonneau cover is going to be closed down for me, I don't see any reason at the moment to slit this unless I come across something while I'm working on it otherwise. So if any of you know any better and out there watching the video, let me know in the comment section below, and let everybody else know in the comment section below what the best way to go about that is. But I've got it sitting solid right now. And the reason I've got this flipped open again is to get the end seals on. So basically all we need to do is clean and prep this surface now. Again, it's going to be the same IPA wipe down, IPA lint-free cloth, and then a 3M Primer 94 treatment to get this ready to rock and roll, and basically to hear the roll on from there. I am probably going to play around with measuring from inside of the T-groove here to inside of the T-groove here to figure out exactly how that needs to sit. And I may pre-trim the end seals. I'm going to go backwards in my video footage and figure out exactly how that used to sit so I can copy that. Otherwise, ready to get cleaning and ready to get test fitting and everything. The other thing I want to mention is that I did get the 3M adhesive applied to these UHMW strips. I used the remaining Primer 94 from installing the side seal guys. So those are ready to rock and roll and get stuck onto the rails as well. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the cover here with the seals on it, and then get those rails dialed in and installed back on the truck so the whole cover can go back on at that point. We're pretty much in the home stretch now, so we'll see how this turns out. All right, I now have all of the rubber seals stuck onto the tonneau cover, onto the main body at least. I've got front and back all done, sides all done, and I have everything trimmed up here. So what I did was I took a pair of scissors Basically cut along here along the T shape, and then took a pair of wire cutters and cut down. Those cut nice and cleanly on all four corners, such that these can sit flush with the top of the bed. So that's per how the original one was set up as well. Everything is cut flush on the ends of the end seals. Everything was cut flush with the insides of the side seals, and we are ready to rock and roll with this cover. This thing, if I'm not mistaken, is completely done other than putting the rails back on and everything. But the main body of the cover is completely done. I just have to restore it now with some 303 protectant and stuff like that, which I'll show later. But now let's move on to the bed rails, getting those things finished up and getting those clamped back onto the truck. Okay, so you can see we have the spacer strips adhered now onto the bed rails. Those are looking wonderful. I ended up putting on the rubber ones towards the front of the bed rails, put on the new drains as well. I had to trim these a little bit, but that's all good. So all the hardware on the bed rails is new now. Basically the only thing that remains from the old ones is the same prop rods, which are in just fine and dandy shape, and then the bed rails themselves, of course. So these are ready to go throw onto the truck, and we're gonna go ahead and do that now. All right, so you can see we have the bed rail installed on this side of the bed, and everything's all, everything went in nice and smoothly. One point of note that I want to make is if you take a look up there, we basically got 2 notches of the clamp below the last notch of the rail. That's where these sat happiest. So I tried to move it up for a little bit more engagement. Not enough room to move it up, at least not without it slipping back down. So that's where I'm going to leave it. These are nice and tight and cinched down perfectly. One thing I want to also make mention of is while you're installing this, make sure you basically smack the bed rail down on top of the actual factory bedside cap. Really tight, really nice and tight. If you don't, it's going to sit lifted. I didn't to start with. I started with this end right here and just worked my way down. At the end here, I started smacking everything down into place, and then promptly realized that the rest of mine was a little bit lifted, so I had to loosen those clamps back up and move them down. The other thing is that I got the tube installed. That just slips right over the fitting nice and easy, and that's the corrugated bed drain tube. Again, no clue why they weren't there, but now at least my bed cover will drain outside of the truck and not into the bed. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the other rail on, and then we're gonna be ready to put the bed cover back on after that. All right, well you can see I've got the other bedside bed rail on. All the clamps are in place. Sorry if I'm out of breath. I tightened the crap out of the clamps, so they are securely in place now. Same exact process as the other side. You can see we got the drain tube running down there perfectly. And the other thing I want to mention, right there, we'll let it refocus. You can see the prop rod holder. I went ahead and threw those on basically right rearwards of some little screws that are screwed into the rail. Don't know what those screws are for, unless it's just a marker for those, but that is where those ended up going for me, and you can see that they're going to be out of the way of the latches and all. So now it is time to put the bed cover back onto the rails and everything. So go ahead and do that and see where we get afterwards. All right, so here we go. We have the finished product of the bed cover reinstalled on the truck. So all I did was throw this guy back on. I put the wing nuts or handheld nuts up from underneath, along with the big fender washers and the split lock washers. Tightened them down, and everything kind of locked into place. I made sure to square up the aluminum rail portion of this with the end of the bed right here. I didn't use any bed bulkhead seal. I want to see how watertight this is as it sits, and if I can avoid using it, great. If I have to use it in the future, I can always add that. It's going to be much tougher to remove it than to add it because of the adhesive. So we'll see how that works out. It's really easy to add if I needed to. I just have to loosen those 2 nuts up underneath there and then flip this little section over because it flips really easy, nice and easy. But you can see the bed cover's on. The other thing I want to mention, this tailgate flap seal, because it's fresh, really has a tendency to want to sit down like this. And with that being the case, I ended up having to do a little bit of maneuvering to get the tailgate shut, because the tailgate wanted to just shove the flap seal inwards like this, and then if I had the bed cover down, and on the flip side, shutting the back flip cover with the tailgate up is a real pain, where I have to basically slam on the top of the cover to get it to shut, instead of it being really easy by pulling on the little release cable underneath. So what I did was pull on the release cable to latch the back flip cover down, and then just shut the tailgate really carefully, and the seal pinched in the middle, and over here on this side, I ended up just by hand kind of reaching my hand up underneath and pulling the seal up so it sits nice and flush. And you can see that new seal is nice and pliable and sits nice and tight, even against the slots for the tailgate step and everything. So that's beautiful. I'm super happy with how this came out. It's a heck of a lot better than it was. Still not perfect, but for $100 worth of seals versus over $1,000 for a new cover, I'll take this any day of the week, especially since it's not going on a brand new truck or anything, and everything else on the truck is a little bit of wear and tear just like this does. So let me know in the comments section if you have any questions, if there's anything I didn't cover in the video. And like I said, it's not really a full tutorial of how to do this. It's just more of a step-by-step of what I did to breathe some life back into my back flip cover. So again, let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Thank you all for watching, and hope to see you in the next video. Take care.